Recently, the county commission made national news when it voted to give the new Marlins Stadium approximately $400 million. Part of the incentive was that the investment would be a job creator. Was it? If so, what would you say are the jobs that have been created? How many and where are they? And in retrospect, would you support that decision today? And if not, how would you otherwise spend those $400 million?
The Marlins Stadium in the recruitment process generated more than 7,000 applicants. But when you look at the reports that were generated by South Florida Workforce, only about 154 people were actually employed from that group from Miami-Dade County. Whether or not it will generate jobs, it has generated jobs, but let me tell you what jobs it has generated. Many of you know that the sports arenas have seasonal workers. You have vendors who go around, you have your concessionaires, and you have different seasons for different arenas. So those are the kind of small jobs that have been generated, but they're still jobs that were needed. Did it keep its promise in terms of what it needed to do for local job employment? Absolutely not. As a result of the Marlins Stadium, I have made over 12 amendments because we should not be committing something to the community unless we're going to deliver.
I didn't vote for the stadium because I was not a sitting commissioner. But however, following it from what information that was given, I would not have voted for the Marlins Stadium. And historically, I'll tell you why. We had, the Heat had a stadium over town that we actually invested in years ago because they were going to bring jobs and they were going to impact economically that community, and they did not do that. I believe that multi-millionaires and billionaires who own those kinds of facilities, they should invest their own money in doing that. So no, I would not have.
There is a misconception about how the Marlins Stadium was funded. The fund that funded the Marlins Stadium cannot support any of the programs that support you. It was generated based on the CDT, the Convention Development Tax, and the Tourist Development Tax. Those dollars can only be spent on arenas. None of your tax dollars went to spend that. In terms of whether or not I would support the stadium, yes, I would.
I know that it did not create the jobs that was promised. I would not have made that decision on that because historically, again, it's been shown to us that most of those major companies do not keep their word, especially when they have gotten a lot of public dollars. So I would have gone on the historical data that I had to not make that kind of decision. I know that there is high unemployment rate here in Miami-Dade County, and it is a challenge. And from my perspective, it is going to be about the business of really growing the private sector for new jobs for people who live here.
Did it create jobs? Not what we expected, not what we were told. However, it did create some permanent positions after it was built. Now, when we get down to the finances, I think if I would have had a lot more information from staff, which is who we have to depend on at that time, and as you know, that particular staff is no longer there, maybe I would have asked for a lot more. The tourist development taxes as well as the convention development taxes, Commissioner Jordan got into that. Yes, they cannot be used for affordable housing. It cannot be used for social services. So when you have those type of tax dollars, those are not your property tax dollars. They're coming from the tourists who come in, bed taxes from hotels, from all of the tourist type attractions. This is where these tax dollars come from, not from us. It doesn't come from us, so we could not use it for those things. We only could use it for, say, convention centers or stadiums or that type of means.
People were duped. I just want to keep it real. I think what we were told and what we got was just blanket, plain and simple, not the truth. And we have had enough experiences in our community to understand that that is not how we should be treated in our community. That was a bad deal going forward. It's a bad deal now. It's a bad deal later. And we are saddled with the debt on the back end. So the question really is, did it do what it was supposed to do? No, it did not. Did it recognize the need in the community for jobs? No, it did not. And more importantly, the other question is, if we had to do this all over again, what would we do with that money? We would get people trained. Because the excuse we always hear is that there are not enough skilled labor and not enough people to do the kind of work for people to have permanent jobs. If we had an opportunity to use that money wisely, we need to apply that money to training people in our community so that we have the skills for them to take care of themselves and their families and to move this community out of the poverty and the situation that we're in today.
What would I do if I had to do it all over again? To be honest with you, that may be a little bit of a disagreement that I may have with my colleagues. I would not probably vote for it if I would have ensured that the people had more jobs there.
Did it give us the jobs that were promised? I think everyone here knows that answer is absolutely not. And if anyone answers differently, then they're lying to our face. Now, the part of the problem that I think that most of the commissioners misunderstood or did not catch was that the people did not have a choice in this matter. More than $400 million of monies that were meant for our community was spent on behalf of 13 individuals. Now, is that a problem? Sometimes not. But in this situation, it's a big problem, especially where the next big vote that they provided to the people was a vote on whether or not we're allowed to have pit bulls in our county. Now, when you prioritize what is more important in our communities, is it pit bulls or is it $400 million to a stadium that most people here did not want in the first place? I think that that's really important. We have to look at it.
Would I have voted for it? No. I actively tried to get jobs. I was working at the time with Jobs for Justice. I am a state legislator. And, you know, it's been talked about the cost of the stadium at $400 million. That's wrong. This stadium, by the time we pay the interest over 30 years, is going to be about $3 billion.
What I would do is I would give this vote to the people. Let them decide on how it is that they want to spend the money that affects their communities. Because when we make the decision, or when that commission made the decision, they made the wrong one.
Could it have been used for other things? Absolutely. You know, over in Miami Beach, we have a convention center that's falling apart. In Miami, you have the convention center that they're thinking about tearing down. If we want to compete, if we want to create jobs, we got to bring conventions out here. We're going to get more tourist dollars. Let's bring conventions. We are not bringing them. We have fallen behind.
I will continue to support the stadium. The stadium, I did not support it exclusively as a job creator, but what it brings to the community in its totality. First, on the issue of jobs, more than 60% of the jobs during the construction of that stadium were from workers from Miami-Dade County, and over 94% of the jobs were from the state of Florida, predominantly South Florida, Tri-County area. Obviously, it's been stated, those tax dollars could not be used to improve our infrastructure, roads, sewerage pipes, water, those other areas. It exclusively can be used for convention center, sports facilities, and buildings of that magnitude. And that's by the legislature. That's not by us imposing it ourselves. That's by the legislature's mandate of where you can use those dollars. And I ask myself, and I ask you, the publicity that we just had a couple of weeks ago by the Miami Heat winning the World Championship, how much would that have cost us to pay for that publicity that we got worldwide? There's not enough money in the coffers of this county to pay for that publicity.
As far as voting, it's not important whether these good people will have voted for it or not. What is really important is that you people were not allowed the right to vote. You were not allowed the right to vote on the stadium. You were not allowed to vote on the tunnel. You were not allowed to vote on the performance arts centers. All these projects, this stadium is going to be costing the county about $1 million a year for maintenance.
I did not have to vote for that because at that time I wasn't part of the system. But if you really think about it, someone told me the other day that the roof of the stadium is leaking and has to be fixed. And the residents around the stadium have problems because they cannot park in front of their houses and they have to park away and walk in, and there was an issue where they're going to put a garage so people can park there. The bottom line with this is that, you know, I admire the incumbents for being there and making decisions, but I think that sometimes they make the wrong decision and they don't have the whatever it takes to say, you know what, we made the wrong decision. That stadium is a beautiful place that we will pay and our children will pay, and it's basically something that, you know, a lot of people are going right now, but you know what happened with baseball? People sometimes they get tired, the team is no good, and what will happen is that it will end up just another bad deal that went wrong, and all of us will pay for it. When in reality, that money should be used to stimulate community growth, create jobs, create training, help people in the community advance so that we can have a stronger and more powerful community.
As far as publicity, folks, for somebody that's out of work, for somebody that's starving, publicity ain't gonna do a hell of a lot.
We can always say, well, you know, we used the money couldn't be used for this, or the money couldn't be used for that. But reality is that that place is not the best deal we ever done.